What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all well, and welcome back to Dragon Age Origins. As always, this is not a main episode of the Let's Play. This is a Codex lore reading episode. If that's not something you're interested in, then go ahead and click away now. If that is something you're interested in, then let's go sit by the pretty waterfall and get our nerd on. Right. Believe we have a whole bunch of things to look at here. So we have dragon. We have high dragons now, thanks to the Flemeth fight. High dragon. A fully mature adult female dragon is the High Dragon, the great monster of legend, the rarest of all dragon kind. These dragons hollow out massive lairs for themselves, but they need the space to house their harem of drakes as well as their eggs and the dragonlings. High dragons are seldom seen. They spend most of their time sleeping and mating, living off the prey their drakes bring back. But once every 100 years or so, High Dragon prepares for clutching by emerging from her lair and taking wing. She will fly far and wide, eating hundreds of animals, most often livestock, over the course of a few weeks and leaving smoldering devastation in her wake. She then returns to her lair to lay her eggs and will not appear in the skies again for another century. Chantry Hierarchy. The Divine is the titular head of the Chantry. Although since the schism split the Imperial Chantry into its own faction, there are now in fact two Divines at any one time. One Divine, informally called the White Divine, is a woman housed in the Grand Cathedral in Val Rayo. The other, known as the Black Divine, is a man housed in the Argent Spire in Minrathous. Neither Divine recognizes the existence of the other, and the informal names are considered sacrilege. No matter the gender, a divine is addressed as Most Holy or Your Perfection. Beneath the rank of divine is the Grand Cleric. Each Grand Cleric presides over numerous chantries and represents the highest religious authority for their region. They travel to Val Rayo when the College of Clerics convenes, but otherwise remain where they are assigned. All Grand Clerics are addressed as Your Grace. Beneath the Grand Cleric is the Mother, or in the Imperial Chantry, the Father. If a mother is in charge of a particular chantry, revered is appended to her title, literally meant a revered mother in Lotharan. These are the priests responsible for administering to the spiritual well-being of their flock. A mother or revered mother is addressed as Your Reverence. Brothers and sisters form the rank and file of the chantry and consist of three main groups: Affirmed, Initiates, and Clerics. Affirmed are the lay brethren of the chantry, those regular folk who have turned to the chantry for succor. Often they are people who have led a difficult or irreligious life and have chosen to go into seclusion, or even orphans and similar unfortunates who were raised into the chantry life. The affirmed take care of the chantry and are in turn afforded a life of quiet contemplation, no questions asked. Only those folk who take vows become initiates. These are men and women in training, whether in academic knowledge or the martial skills of a warrior. All initiates receive an academic education, although only those who seek to become Templars learn how to fight in addition. Clerics are the true academics of the Chantry, those men and women who have dedicated themselves to the pursuit of knowledge. They are often found in Chantry archives, sages presiding over libraries of books and arcane knowledge. The most senior of these clerics, placed in charge of such archives, are given the title Elder, although such a rank is still beneath that of Mother. All other brothers and sisters are addressed simply by noting their title before their name, such as Brother Genitivi, from a guide for ambassadors from Ravane. Dragon cults. Let us suggest, for the moment, that a high dragon is simply an animal. A cunning animal, to be sure, but in possession of no true self-awareness or sentience. There has not, after all, been a single recorded case of a dragon attempting to communicate or performing any act that could not likewise be attributed to a clever beast. How then does one explain the existence of so-called dragon cults throughout history? One dragon cult might be explainable, especially in light of the reverence of the old gods in the ancient Tevinter Imperium. In the wake of the First Blight, many desperate imperial citizens turned to the worship of real dragons to replace the old gods who had failed them. A dragon, after all, was a god figure that they could see. It was there, as real as the archdemon itself, and, as evidence makes clear, did offer a degree of protection to its cultists. Other dragon cults could be explained in light of the first. Some cult members might have survived and spread the word, The worship of the old gods was as widespread as the Imperium itself. Certainly such secrets could have made their way into many hands, but there have been reports of dragon cults even in places where the Imperium never touched, among folks who had never heard of the old gods or had any reason to. How does one explain them? Members of a dragon cult live in the same lair as a high dragon, nurturing and protecting its defenseless young. In exchange, the high dragon seemed to permit those cultists to kill a small number of those young in order to feast on draconic blood. That blood is said to have a number of strange long-term effects, including bestowing greater strength and endurance, as well as an increased desire to kill. It may breed insanity as well. Navaran dragon hunters have said these cultists are incredibly powerful opponents. The changes in the cultists are a form of blood magic, surely, but how did the symbiotic relationship between the cult and the high dragon form in the first place? How did the cultists know to drink the dragon's blood? How did the high dragon convince them to care for its young, or know that they would? Is there more to draconic intelligence than we have herefore guessed at? No member of a dragon cult has ever been taken alive, and what accounts exist from days of the Navaran hunters record only mad rants and impossible tales of godhood. With dragons only recently reappearing and still incredibly rare, we may never know the truth, but the question remains. From Flame and Scale by Brother Florian, Chantry Scholar, 928 Dragon. Flemeth. You are required to do nothing, least of all believe. Ages ago, legend says Conabar took to wife a beautiful young woman who harbored a secret talent for magic. Flemeth of Hierarchy. And for a time they lived happily, until the arrival of a young poet, Osin, who captured the lady's heart with his verse. They turned to the chastened tribes for help, and hid from Conabar's wrath in the wilds, until word came to them that Conabar lay dying. His last wish was to see Flemeth's face one final time. The lovers returned, but it was a trap. Conabar killed Osin, and imprisoned Flemeth in the highest tower of the castle. In grief and rage, Flemeth worked a spell to summon a spirit into this world to wreak vengeance upon her husband. Vengeance she received, but not as she planned. The spirit took possession of her, turning Flemeth into an abomination, a twisted, maddened creature. She slaughtered Conabar and all his men, and fled back into the wilds. For 100 years, Flemeth plotted, stealing men from the chastened to sire monstrous daughters, horrific things that could kill a man with fear. These Kakari witches led an army of chastened from the wilds to strike at the Alamori tribes. They were defeated by the hero Cormac, and all the witches burned, so they say. But even now the wilders whisper that Flemeth lives on the marsh, and she and her daughters steal those men who come too near. Morrigan's mother saved the last Grey Wardens from death atop the Tower of Ishal, but just who or what Flemeth truly is a mystery. She was slain at Morrigan's behest, at least apparently. Brother Ferdinand Genitivi. As it is the duty of all true sons of the Chantry to make the chant heard from every corner of the world, I made it my mission to find as many corners of the world as possible. The Maker can hardly expect us to do one without the other. Excerpt from In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Brother Genitivi is one of the Chantry's most well-known scholars, primarily on the basis of the stories he has published, which many of his contemporaries dismiss as fanciful, of his travels across the length and breadth of Thedas. His travels, and rather too curious nature, led him to a study of folklore, which gave him the notion that he could track down the most debated of all artifacts, the Urn of Sacred Ashes. He announced that he had found what appeared to be the trail of the urn, left in the legends of the regions through which it had passed from Minrathous on its way into Hyden. Keeper Zathrian. Even with all our magic and skill, we only delayed the inevitable. It is said the elves lived in Ferelden long before any others set foot there, and though most of their knowledge has been lost, it falls to the keeper of each clan to preserve what they have. Zathrian is an old, severe elf, with little love for outsiders, but his clan is facing a more trying enemy than most. Long ago, in retribution for an attack against his clan, he unleashed a terrible curse. He summoned a spirit into this world, and set it upon the humans who had wronged him. The spirit did not simply slaughter Zathrian's enemies, it transformed them into monstrous beasts. In time, however, The werewolves he had created regained their minds, and they sought out the one responsible for their suffering, turning the curse upon Zathrian's own people. At the urging of the Lady of the Forest, Apparition persuaded Zathrian to give up his own life, returning the werewolves to their human forms and saving the elves who had been inflicted with the curse. Witherfang. Witherfang is, according to the Keeper Zathrian, a wolf. He is no ordinary wolf, however. He is a wolf possessed by a powerful spirit, and the source of the werewolf curse that plagues the Brazilian forest. While Witherfang is hundreds of years old, and very powerful in his own right, the only way to end his curse is to cut out his heart and bring it to Zathrian. It appears that Witherfang has two sides, as nature does. One is the wolf, savage and male, but the other is the Lady of the Forest, gentle and female. Witherfang is both beast and beauty, terrible and peace-loving. The lady has guided the werewolves of the Brazilian forest to come to peace with their nature, as she has. The History of the Chantry, Chapter 3. It is said that at the Battle of the Valarian Fields, Mapharath stood and looked out over his armies. He had conquered the southern reaches of the greatest empire the world had ever known, and built splintered barbarian clans into a force to be feared. With pride in his heart, he turned to congratulate his men, and found that they had turned from him. Mapharath fell to the evil of jealousy. After all that he had done, his wife was the one to receive all the glory. He saw his wife's power and influence, and tired of his place as second husband below the Maker. His heart swelled with fury. If he had conquered just to have his wife wrestled from him by a forgotten god and a legion of faith-hungry rabble, then perhaps this war was not worth the trouble. Here, history and the Chant of Light come apart. History tells us that Mapharath looked north into the central Imperium and saw nothing but more war against a rapidly regrouping army, and he despaired. The Chant of Light holds that Mapharath chafed with jealousy of the Maker, and jealousy of the glory that Andraste received, although it was he who led the armies. Mapharath travelled to the imperial capital of Minrathous to speak with the Archon Hessarian. There, he offered up his wife to the Imperium in return for a truce that would end hostilities once and for all. The Archon, eager to put down the voice of the prophet that stirred his own people against him, agreed. Mapharath led Andraste into an ambush where she was captured by Imperial agents, putting an end to her exalted march. Crowds of loyalists stood in the central square of Minrathous to watch Andraste's execution. By command of the Archon, she was burned at the stake in what the Imperium believed to be the most painful punishment imaginable. According to the Chantry, however, Andraste was instead purified and made whole by the flames, ascending to life at her Maker's side. By all accounts, there was only silence where they expected screams. At the sight of the prophet burning, the crowds were filled with a profound guilt, as if they had participated in a great blasphemy. So moving was the moment that the Archon himself drew his sword and thrust it into the prophet's heart, ending her torment and leaving those assembled to consider the weight of what they had seen. Whereas the execution of Andraste was meant to be a symbol of defeat for the faith of the Maker, in truth it all but sealed the fate of the worship of the old gods and paved the way for the spread of the Maker's chant. From Tales of the Destruction of Thedas by Brother Genitivi, Chantry Scholar. In Uthenera. Elder, your time is come. Now I am filled with sorrow. Weary eyes need resting. Heart has become grey and slow. In waking sleep is freedom. We sing, rejoice, we tell the tales, we laugh and cry, we love one more day. From In Uthenera, traditional elven song of unknown origin. Alrighty guys, now that we're all caught up on the codex, we are good to head to Haven next episode, so thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like and a comment. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, there is a tip link in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you guys soon with more Dragon Age Origins. Take care guys, have a good day.